conflict, politics, military-industrial complex, technology, war. The Flash Traffic Podcast.
Once more, to the breach. Okay, we're live. Ukrainians love hot dogs. Did I tell you that?
I was unaware of that.
Yeah, there's a story in the New York Times about how much they love hot dogs.
Oh, that's useful.
Yes, very useful. And let me share the screen so you can see. We'll start with hot dogs. Boop.
Probably going to lose a lot of listeners over this, but okay.
Hot dogs.
There we go.
In Ukraine, they love hot dogs. There's hot dogs everywhere. The title of this article in the New York Times is "In the Midst of War, a Tale of Hot Dogs." Nathan's Famous wants to expand their hold in Ukraine because everybody eats hot dogs. There's hot dogs on trains. There's hot dogs at every gas station. And they make hot dogs like pigs in a blanket. They're usually wrapped in a big, doughy thing.
I'm glad you've shared this with us.
This is important. This is the cultural aspect of Ukraine. Unfortunately, it's like one of the only things you can get on a train, the food car. You can't fly in Ukraine because of the war. They'll shoot you down. The Russians will shoot you down. But you can take a train everywhere. And the big routes have a food car where they have hot dogs.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
And these gas stations are huge. So they're like full-blown restaurant inside the gas station.
Oh, very
That's
unique.
Ukraine.
Yeah, U.S. has nothing like that, right? Well,
well, not like this. Like if you
think it's called Wawa.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, it is kind of like that.
Quickie Mart, 7-Eleven. Anyways.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it feels like I really understand the conflict more with that.
Hot dog.
Piece of background, filling out the cultural tapestry, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. Everybody needs some kind of cultural education in different countries. Before we get to the peace process and the prediction by J.P. Morgan Chase, which is what I want to talk about today, there was an article that we didn't get a chance to talk about because we had a lot of guests on the podcast recently. And I wanted to talk about this article or this issue that came out last week, over a week ago now. And the title of the article in the New York Times, let me pull it up so everybody can see. It is, okay, so official push to rewrite intelligence so it could not be used against Trump. So apparently the Tulsi Gabbard's chief of staff, Joe Kent is his name. Apparently he received some intelligence products that said that this gang from Venezuela is not affiliated with the actual Venezuelan government. They didn't like this.
I think the article is mislabeled and we've been catfished. The title should be "One Unqualified Person Working for Another Unqualified Person." I think that would have been a better title to self-lie.
It's not very descriptive. It's not very you're basically describing the entire Trump administration. So.
Two unqualified people working together on the taxpayer dime. That should be the title of this article.
I think it's got to be more descriptive than that.
Oh, okay.
So here's the gist of it. Here's the gist of the episode or the event. So they had this intelligence report that says this gang from Venezuela TDA is the acronym, and it stands for Tren de Aragua, which means in Spanish, as I understand it, tren is train, and then of this area in Venezuela, Aragua.
Wow, very scary.
Yes, I'm pronouncing that poorly, I'm sure. Anyways, so TDA is the gang, and the intelligence report said that they're not affiliated with the Venezuelan government. That's a problem for Trump, because Trump is using a 1798 act called the Alien Enemies Act, which allows you to deport individuals from hostile or enemy countries without due process. So the chain of logic here goes something like this. If TDA members are controlled by Venezuela, and Venezuela is a hostile or enemy state, then we do not need to go through due process to deport individuals. They do not need a hearing. They do not need to seek asylum because we're going to deport them without due process.
Right, they're legal aliens. They have no right to due process.
Well, as long as they're found, to be illegal aliens, and they don't want to. We don't want to have a court hearing so they can sue for asylum, or they can deport themselves. It's called voluntary departure.
Yeah, self-deport. Don't they pay them like $1,000 or something to leave?
No. Well, that is a recent incentive program that the administration is doing. But usually under voluntary departure, you have to pay for yourself to leave the country. Usually, unless there's an incentive
program. That could be problematic
like you said.
If you are illegal and you're broke. You probably can't deport yourself.
Well, the U.S. government can't really allow you to just walk back across the border, or swim back across the Rio Grande.
Why not?
Well, because it's dangerous. What do you mean?
Is it a practicality thing? What do we care? What's the Trump administration care?
Okay, well, it's a human rights thing.
But you don't have human rights if you're a legal alien.
Yes, you do. You don't have. Maybe you don't have constitutional rights, but you have human rights.
Says who?
Says ethics, logic, and
By
humanity.
Who? Whose ethics? Whose logic?
What do you? You're kidding, right?
Are you kidding? You think the Trump administration cares about any of that?
No, I don't think they do at all. I'm saying illegal aliens or undocumented immigrants, they have human rights, obviously.
According to who? The Hague? The UN? Boy. Who? Like, where's this coming from?
I think you're kidding. I'm not even.
No, I don't think you've done your homework on this. Do you think Russia respects human rights? There's like this inalienable, internationally accepted view of human, because Russia cares about human rights, right? They would say, you got to give them a job. You got to treat them fairly.
Look, just because some countries or some authoritarian regimes don't recognize the universal law of human rights.
So that's not universal.
That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Well, actually, it means it doesn't. Okay. You want to show me across the Middle East?
Okay, you do.
You want to show me across the Middle East where there's a universal respect for human rights? Humans are treated like bugs across much of this world. I'm just throwing it out there.
I hear you. To call it universal would imply that it applies to everyone in the universe.
I think you have a utopian view of what you would like humanity to be. And then there is what humanity actually is.
Right. Do you see the problem with this? I mean, do you see the problem with being able to send people...
Gangbangers?
People? Well, let's start with people.
Okay.
Well, let's start with people. Do you see the problem with sending people out of the country to places like El Salvadorian prisons?
What's wrong with El Salvador? El Salvador's a nice place. I've been there.
Do you think there's something wrong with sending them without due process? Do you think there's a precedence here that will slowly or maybe quickly erode our constitutional form of government? Do
Well,
you see?
why do they have due process if they're not here legally?
Because they're
Is
humans.
that the argument?
No, that is
Humans.
probably the argument. That's probably the argument for the administration. But don't you see a slippery slope here, where if you start deporting individuals without due process, you're basically degrading the process of law. It's a slippery slope.
And that's a problem for the Trump administration. How?
Not for the Trump administration until election time. Then it might be a big problem for them.
But understand, they want to deport 10 million people? Is that the number? How many people
I
they
thought
want?
it was 12 million.
All right, 12
is what
million.
Eric Prince said.
Okay, so Eric Prince wants to deport 12 million people and use Blackwater 2.0 to do it. You can't do that using due process.
No, of course not.
How long do you think it'll take you? A century using due process? So if you're going to actually deport that number of people, you in fact cannot do due process because you'll simply just never get it done. It's a math equation.
Right.
So they're on a timeline. Trump administration's on a timeline. They're now down to 3 years and 7 months and plus to deport 12 million people. They've probably deported 1,500. So they're running a little behind schedule.
Okay. Well, I just think it's a slippery slope. Next, it's going to be, if it hasn't already been, it's going to be.
What do you care? What do you
rid
care?
of habeas. They're going to suspend habeas corpus.
How does it affect you?
Well,
you got a pension.
It's
you
like
get a paycheck.
it's like that.
Your kids
like
are in a
that
good
old saying.
school. What do you care?
It's like that old saying. First they came for my neighbor and I didn't say anything, and then they came for me and nobody said anything. I'm just saying it's just like the NRA, National Riflemen's Association. Whenever there's a bill that encroaches at all on the Second Amendment, gun rights, they adamantly oppose it.
Where did those?
Because it's a slippery slope for them. If you reduce the number of rounds in a magazine from 30 to 20, according to NRA logic, next year you're going to ban assault rifles altogether. And what will we do without our assault rifles?
Where did those gun humping dick bags move to? NRA headquarters used to be in Virginia, outside of D.C. Because I used to shoot at NRA headquarters
Church,
for about
right?
2 years. Yeah, I forget where.
It was Falls
maybe
Church.
For about 2 years, I shot there. It's in the basement. Their range was in the basement of the NRA headquarters. It's a nice range. I think they moved though. Didn't they move to? Let me wait for it. Texas.
Probably, if they moved anywhere, I would guess Texas. But I worked in the building. The National Security Space Office was right next door to the NRA. That building. I used to go to the cafeteria of the NRA.
Oh, no kidding.
And,
so they had a museum there too. They had a decent little museum you could go to,
and a gift
cafeteria,
of course.
Yes, where you could buy an NRA hat and be a gun humping dick bag, just like they were.
I bought my father a NRA ammo box.
Bet you loved it.
Yeah. Who wouldn't?
I remember, like I said, I was an NRA member in the '80s as a kid. When I was in the Boy Scouts and took rifle marksmanship merit badge and wanted to hunt squirrels or whatever.
Hold on. That's interesting, but not compelling. Look.
Oh, you want to talk hot dogs, bro?
Touche. Okay. We're not going to talk hot dogs.
I'm just saying
NRA. All right.
The NRA,
I'm saying this is a slippery slope. Do you see the slippery slope here?
Yeah. So, but the NRA did the same thing. They used to be a normal organization that promoted gun safety and ethical hunting. That's what they were. Somewhere along the line in the years, they became a right-wing, radical, rabid political action group that said
it was probably when Charleston Heston.
Charleston Heston. By the way, he made some great movies. But somewhere along the way, they
take
started
the gun from my cold dead hands or whatever.
So somewhere the NRA started to rub assault rifles against their dicks and said if you didn't do that, you weren't a good American anymore. Somewhere along the line, it got perverted until now what you have with the NRA is a political, right-wing political action group. But they went down the slippery slope, and look what they turned into.
So are you saying that people that advocate for human rights they're going to go down this evil pathway where eventually everyone has human rights?
I'm just saying, I think that
NRA wants everyone to have an assault rifle. The ACLU wants everyone to have human rights.
No, my point merely is that the NRA are a collective group of mindless dickbags.
Agreed.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
We're in violent agreement.
Getting back to this intelligence.
Now, what's all this nonsense about human rights? What do you care? You got your little house, your little world. You're happy. What do you care about any of this?
Look, I'm saying it's a slippery slope, and it's one thing to ignore or cherry pick national intelligence for foreign policy issues, a la weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Are you going there?
Okay. Yeah.
Did you just go there?
Sure. So it's one thing to manipulate intelligence reports
Curveball.
Or falsify them. Yes, the guy Curveball. How do you remember that?
I don't remember much. I remember. I think I read a book. Wasn't there a book called Curveball published about?
I never read that, but
I read it. Yeah.
You probably know more than me about Curveball. One of the analysts that was the source for there's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq pre-Iraq war. His name was Curveball. That was one of the sources.
That was the code name for the source, the primary source that they were using.
Did we ever find the source? Did they ever figure out who it was? Deep Throat?
I think so. But I think the main point was it was non-collaborated. You couldn't trust it. It was complete bullshit.
It was bullshit. And just like Tulsi Gabbard wants bullshit. She wants intelligence to support whatever Trump wants to do. Trump wants to deport people. Trump wants to deport people without due process because it's convenient, it's fast.
Well, it's part of his political agenda that immigrants are bad, immigrants are here illegally, immigrants are criminal. He's desperate to find immigrants that are criminal to support his shtick to deport 12 million people. So this is part of it. So this has been politicized, and this is a perversion of the intelligence system where you should just state the facts. Here's the information I have. Here's the source. I'm going to rate it as credible, not credible, asterisk. Everything's caveated in the intelligence community. You don't know anything for sure. There's nothing for certain. Unless you got a picture or something. Satellite imagery, maybe that's pretty sure. But you caveat everything with, hey, here's our opinion. It's this reliable. I give it, 65% reliability. And that's how it goes. But if you want an intelligence system that works, you just report on what you get and then let it ride. And then the consumer, you make sense of this. Here's what I got. You tell me what decision you want to make.
Yeah. Well, first of all, why do we still have a legislation on the books that seemingly is this potent from 1798? Don't you think that we would revise it by this time?
You might be surprised. When I was looking into like critical minerals and stuff, I think the mining law of 1872 is still like the essential mining law that the U.S. refers to, and that was to deconflict gunfights between competing mining companies fighting over the same claim, and like pulling out their 6-shooters and we're going to whack everybody. You're like, really, dude?
Regulating what? The law been advised? So what's the law? So they have to have like a duel or something? The CEOs?
Well, no, they used to. If you had like 5 different, private companies coming up on a silver claim in Colorado, they'd be like, "This is my claim." No, it isn't. We were here first. No, we were here first. And then you pull out your 6-shooters and start whacking each other to try to get the silver claim.
Settle it like men.
Settle like men, like the NRA wants you to. Rub a gun on your dick. So the law was merely to deconflict kind of the claims process, so you didn't get in a gunfight. And it was only 6 pages long. That's as deep as it went. That is still the primary law for extracting non-fuel minerals in the United States. So you bring that up. How preposterous is it that a law hasn't been updated in 200 plus years? There's other laws out there that we've never got around to.
I guess, right. I guess that's why we have the court system, to interpret those laws in the context of contemporary America. So, and I will admit that there are probably a lot of undocumented immigrants here that have either organized crime or crime connections, foreign military intelligence or intelligence service connections, or just people that don't belong here. They don't deserve to be here because they're criminals in some other capacity, or they're fleeing from crimes that they did in their home country. But that
figuring that out is complicated. You got to do an investigation on each one.
Right. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of money.
Time and money.
That's due process.
That's due process. Time and money.
But it's like this Ben Franklin, I think, said, those that, I'm going to murder this. Yeah. What is the quote? Those that would forego security, forego freedom for security,
deserve neither.
I stumbled through that, but you get the idea.
Something like that, yeah, right.
You get the idea. This is security. This is an easy way to make sure that there are no foreign intelligence operatives. There's no criminals. There's no MS-13. There's no, these guys are TDA, Tren de Aragua. But
I don't find that to be a scary criminal name, but anyways, maybe other people do. I don't know. Maybe that's scary for someone.
Train of Aragua.
Then we're going to run you over. Okay.
I don't know. But look, you know what? We can't do this. We can't
don't let them in the country to begin with. If you didn't let them in the country in the first place, you wouldn't have to worry about investigation, figuring out who's who in the zoo.
Sure.
Put the immigration courts in foreign countries. Don't have them in the U.S. because they come here and then they skip on it and they live here and then they have a baby here and now you're screwed. Now they're a U.S. citizen. And that's what the Trump administration wants to unwind and roll back. Hey, man, I live in a border state. I see it every day. I'm in Arizona, dude.
Sure. If there was a practical way to keep people out of the United States, I don't think I would necessarily be against that. If it actually worked and it wasn't, the cost of, whatever we're foregoing to build a wall. What opportunity cost do we forego to try to build a wall for 2,000 miles over shifting sands and rivers and gullies and
ask Steve Bannon.
Wadis.
He knows, right?
He knows. That's why he went to prison. He knows all too well.
What?
Sloppy Steve. We talked about this on the podcast.
Oh, you remember that? Alcoholic, big fat red alcoholic nose.
Sloppy Steve Bannon. He was illegally soliciting funds for the wall. But it wasn't going to the wall. No, it went to his slush fund. Bullshit.
Yeah, went to his.
And so he went to prison.
Bank account.
He went to pound me in the Steve prison, and then then Trump.
Into Steve. I guess that makes sense.
Pound Steve. Yeah, and just using intelligence products in general for domestic purposes, that's ridiculous.
It's pathetic.
Anybody
it's sad. No one wants that.
Well, the intelligence community can say whatever the fuck they want. And they can say, we don't have to tell you, or we can't tell you how we came up with this. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. But if we told you, we would be giving up our sources and our methods. But that would be detrimental to the United States.
You're just talking about publicly, though. Anyone on a intelligence oversight committee, anyone in the national leadership has access to sources and methods. It's just dudes like you and me in the public don't have
Sure.
access to that. So
Sure.
if an oversight committee wants to get into the weeds of this, they will absolutely say, this is the dude, very, very specific. This is why we believe him or don't believe him. They have access to all that stuff.
Sure. And that's
You and I don't, and we shouldn't.
Therein lies the hypocrisy, because I hope that behind closed doors in a private, committee meeting, they actually talk about the facts instead of this ridiculous bullshit that Congress and the Senate talk about in front of C-SPAN or whoever.
Oh, that's the bullshit machine.
It's ridiculous.
But wasn't the Trump administration that got all upset about the politicization of intelligence beforehand under the Biden administration?
Which
Weaponization of everything, of intelligence, a report about Trump.
Information.
Yeah, right. But now they're doing it?
Oh, yeah, they're hypocrites, of course. Especially MAGA Mike Johnson. Hypocrite, talking ridiculous shit. Idiots. Okay,
so if you want an intelligent, I say intelligent system that works, politics must be kept out of it. However you do that. You don't like what they have to say? Oh, good for you. That's your problem. You like what they have to say? Oh, good for you. It worked out for you. But they need to be absolutely independent and render their opinion as they see fit as professionals. Now, they can't be
for the most part, that does
politicized.
happen. That does happen.
For the most part, from what I've seen, for sure.
It does happen. Behind closed doors, when the president wants to actually know something, he asks the director of the CIA to tell him the truth. If he's going to publicize that, if he's going to publicize any information, he doesn't care about the truth. Okay, but if he's making a decision, he needs to know the right answer. I think there's plenty of truth that can be garnered from the intelligence community. Facts.
Now, sure, but this gets complicated. I saw in Afghanistan, I was an intel guy, and I saw the absolute shit show that was U.S. and NATO operations in Afghanistan. And senior leadership heard stuff they didn't want to hear. That right? You're at the 20 years end of this, and you're getting intelligence and information that this is a shit show circling the drain. And you know what? They didn't want to hear it. It went against the political narrative. It went against 20 years of what we were trying to do. It's the inconvenient truth that, oh, things are getting better. We're training Afghan forces. Look how many Humvees we gave them, all this stuff. And at the end, it didn't amount to shit. Because the level of corruption in the country was mind-numbing. Then you actually couldn't get anything done. I saw general officers have meltdowns when receiving intelligence they didn't like because it went against the whole narrative of what was supposed to go on. Taliban didn't give a shit. Taliban and ISIS don't care about your narrative or how you want this to turn out politically. And the U.S. just couldn't digest or process the incredible amounts of corruption at the highest level of the Afghan government. And I saw general officers literally have meltdowns when hearing stuff that undermined 20 years of American work in the country. And at the end of it, you're like, this hasn't been for shit. It's a tough thing to accept. It's the human mind. Can we accept what we're given? Look at Stalin. Stalin rejected garbage trucks full of intelligence saying, hey, Germans are attacking tomorrow. Tomorrow at this time, they're coming. No, they're not. This is international blackmail. He wouldn't do. We have a deal. Because the reality was unacceptable in his mind. He couldn't process that he was about to be destroyed by someone who had cut a deal with. So anyways, you can reject intelligence because you don't like it. It doesn't fit your narrative. It's politically inconvenient. Yeah, humans do that all the time.
Sure. But I think the bottom line for me on this article or this incident or this, whatever you want to call it,
policy,
Intel Gate or Gabbard Gate or whatever we're calling it now, I think the bottom line is you don't want to do things like this. That's bad. Okay.
Oh,
And
you don't want to
here
corrupt the process?
here-
You want to corrupt it?
you do not want to thwart or circumvent the rule of law and due process, because next time they'll be coming for you. You look German, we're going to deport you to El Salvador, or whatever reason they want. Whatever reason they want to come up with, they're going to deport you to wherever they want to deport you.
But if you're not a U.S. citizen,
why
why
we
does
have
it
the
matter?
It's upholding the due process of law.
So the
that's
courts,
what our country is
the courts
based on.
need to decide this. So
Exactly.
our
Sure.
country is based on that, or used to be based on it?
I hope it's still based on it. But we at the Flash Traffic Podcast are sounding the alarm on
Yes.
anything that thwarts human rights, the
Universal
due process
human
of
rights.
law.
Right.
Yeah, I guess we can't say universal. I've decided we can't say that.
Yeah, what's
from your
universal human
argument.
rights in Donbass? Where's that?
Well, anyways, let's talk about Ukraine, because that's what I actually wanted to talk about. J.P. Morgan Chase, which
I
I
heard
think
of
is
him.
now the official
I heard of him.
the official name of the financial institution, one of the
That
big
really
ones.
runs our country.
Yes, the shadow government, along with BlackRock,
Big banking.
and Goldman Sachs.
Don't get me started on
and-
BlackRock. They are the
Okay,
UN of the global shadow government.
let's focus. Let's
Okay,
focus
good. Let's
on
take a
this.
step back. Yeah, right.
I'm going to. Okay, this is the article or report, I should say, from J.P. Morgan Chase's. What do they call it? The Center for Geopolitics. It's brand new Center for Geopolitics.
Who runs it?
And, Cholet. Hold on, I'm getting there. Can you see me scroll down?
Yeah, it's 9 pages, the article. Yeah.
It's actually a pretty, as far as reports go, it's very straightforward language. I like
Who's
the
this guy?
writing. Derek Cholet is the managing director and head of the J.P. Morgan Chase Center for Geopolitics. Apparently, he was a senior govie, and he pulled some connections to get a job at a brand new think tank that they probably
What was
created
his
for
previous
him.
job?
Who he was at the State Department, the Pentagon, the White House, Congress, and research institutions, and he's been the top advisor to
Was he
multiple
the chief
secretaries
of staff
state.
of the Secretary of Defense?
I do not recall.
I thought he was like
I don't
Lloyd
wanna
Austin's.
Wikipedia him.
Okay. But anyway,
I'm not gonna Wikipedia him.
so this guy's cashed in. He used his
Yes.
position in the
It
government,
seems like that. But
used
people
the
do that.
connection between
It's called
government
networking.
and
It's called
industry.
networking.
Yeah, the top 1% networking. And now he
Not-
cashes in to make a bundle of money on an article a first-year grad student could have written.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
I don't know how much he cashed in. But
He's doing it for free.
I just want to talk about the article and
okay.
some of the things that they say in it. Let's not try to pick apart how people get high-paying jobs in banking and industry after they leave
Nepotism,
government.
1% networking.
The revolving door of government private industry. Okay, the title of J.P. Morgan Chase's Center for Geopolitics report is The Russia-Ukraine Endgame and the Future of Europe. And I have to admit, it's pretty light on both of those points, talking about Russia-Ukraine Endgame and the future of Europe. But the bottom line, it says here, President Zelensky will likely be forced to accept a negotiated settlement with Russia sometime this year. And it goes on, that freezes the fighting, but stops short of a comprehensive peace agreement. Okay.
That's not a stretch. That's like what the betting money's probably on.
By the end of this year, there's going to be something, a ceasefire, an armistice, some kind of weird peace. Maybe everybody goes to ground. Okay, that's not really a stretch. Here it says, expect an imperfect deal by end of Q2, so second quarter. That's June. That's a month away.
That's the end of June.
That's pretty, like, I give them props for sticking their neck out and actually making a prediction that
That's hard to
that
do.
is timely and detailed enough to be useful. So you got to give it to them. But are you kidding me? They think this thing's going to be over in a month? We're just getting started.
He's
We're just
probably
getting warmed up.
he's probably smoking crack.
Yeah, that's terrible. It goes on to say, quote, 2025 was always going to be the year of negotiation, and the end game is here. Okay, I don't think so. I think
Maybe not.
Maybe 2026, but definitely not June, because the offensive, the summer offensive season is just getting started. The interesting thing about this report is they break the result of the war into 4 possible outcomes. The best case is that Ukraine turns into South Korea, one of the tigers of Asia. And we've said this on the podcast. I've said it. I think you agree with me that one of the keys to Ukrainian security is economic growth inside Ukraine and foreign investment.
Sure.
Foreign investment. I think that's their best bet. Not NATO, not boots on the ground for, foreign soldiers.
Well, you're talking self-sufficiency.
It doesn't necessarily have to be self-sufficiency if it's foreign investment. I think that's
how's it going to last then? Why are you going to?
Not going to last.
I was going to say,
Nothing
why are you going to
last forever?
Why are you going to invest in them if it's not a secure investment?
Sure.
And you think Ukraine can defend its own territory?
Okay, there's the rub. It's got to be, no one's going to put money in Ukraine unless it seems like a good idea.
Yeah,
and
right.
This, as I read this, it doesn't look like J.P. Morgan Chase will be putting any money into Ukraine anytime
they're
soon.
Just going to write about it?
I guess.
Just going to write an article about it?
As a precautionary tale, it says, okay, under the best case, they also mention the $300 billion that Russia, that the West has in Russian assets that are frozen.
That's been frozen for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And we're too chicken shit to just
Nobody's
take
gonna
it
if they
and
haven't
do
released
anything
it
about
now.
it. No one's going to release
if
it.
they haven't released the $300 billion now, they're not going to do it.
They're not going to take it. They're not going to seize it.
Ukraine has needed that for
ever.
The last
since day one.
They really need it for the last year. But yeah, they need it from day one. So
what they do, they take the interest from it.
They have done that. They have
taken
done
the interest.
that.
Yeah, right.
They've applied the interest and given it to Ukraine in I don't know what format. That's been a while. I don't know if it was a grant or a loan. Okay, here's 20%. So that was 15% chance that Ukraine will be the best
South
case.
Korea.
South Korea, economically viable and prosperous. 20% that Ukraine will be, quote, still okay, like Israel. Okay. That probably wouldn't be too bad. Strong economically, but constantly harassed militarily and defending themselves forever. What I found interesting... Yeah, what I find interesting about this is there's going to be a part of this Israeli scenario in Ukraine forever. Do you ever think Ukraine is going to be able to let their guard down? It's going to be 200 years.
No.
It's going to be like Yugoslavia.
Right.
The Bosnian ghosts are going to rise up again eventually, right?
Unless something
There's going to be a war in Yugoslavia.
And Russia. Russia's not going to be the same either politically. Putin's not going to live to be 100. Things are going to change. He could get replaced by a clone. You could have like a lot of people talked about Navalny. He's going to solve every problem we have with Russia. No, he isn't, dude. He's just a dude who doesn't like Putin and wants to put himself in power. Do you think he's like a liberal, Democrat that, wants to put Russia on a different path? No, he just wants power for himself.
I remember when Navalny's widow was in the U.S. Congress, and they wanted to put her beside Zelensky's wife, I think. Remember this? This was years ago. about a year
Those
ago.
are all the same.
Yes, that's what we think in the West.
They're all the same. Yeah.
Navalny and Zelensky, what a pair. They're buddies. No.
They're both
Navalny
against Putin.
could care less about Ukraine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Enemy of my enemy. Anyways, 20% odds that it would become Israel. There's going to be parts of this scenario that's going to be with Ukraine forever. They're never going to be rid of the Ruski threat. Okay, now JP Morgan Chase puts the odds at 50% that Ukraine will be not great, like Georgia.
And we'll go back to the Russian orbit. I disagree.
Wow.
I don't see them going back to the Russian orbit.
This Georgia scenario was basically Ukraine 2008 around there until 2022. So this is basically what Ukraine was anyways. So I don't see them going back either.
I think too much.
Society has changed.
Too much has happened. It's not like it was a little skirmish. Yeah, this is an all-out war with millions of casualties. I don't see them like, oh, sorry, let's just go back to the way it was. And you're right, we'll just be your fake Soviet satellite country again. I don't think so. I would not put that at 50%, me personally, but
no. And then 15% odds that it's worst case Belarus, basically a complete client state of Russia.
Possible. Again, I would say highly unlikely, but I would tie this to highly unlikely. But you could tie this back to February 2022 when you look at just what a shit show the Russian invasion has been. I remember reading, you sent me an article last week. There's a breakthrough in Pokrovsk. Okay, read the article. They crossed a road. I'm not exaggerating it. I'm not minimizing it. Russian forces crossed a road in Pokrovsk region. That was the breakthrough. That was the great. Really, bro, that's where we're at. Of the second largest military in the world with huge military, they crossed a road, and that's the article you're writing. Mm-hmm. So I think that's pathetic, like from the Russian perspective, and any naysayer who thinks Ukraine can't win this. At the current rate, Russia could conquer all of Ukraine in 118 years. They crossed a road in Pokrovsk, and that resulted in an article.
I hate that argument. The argument and this JP Morgan Chase report says that right in the first paragraph.
Oh, no, they didn't.
Is that where you got the 118 years?
Oh, maybe I did. Maybe I misremembered.
I think you did.
But they're not the first one to say that, though.
People say different, 100 years or whatever. But they said here, at its current rate of gain. What does that mean? The last 3 months? Last year? I don't know what math they're using.
So Russia haven't taken a lot of ground this year, bro.
Russia will control all of Ukraine in about, and they put an ellipsis between the about and 118 years for pause for dramatic effect. 118 years. I hate that argument.
I don't think you should.
I hate that argument.
Tony, I want you to embrace it.
It is.
I want to see a new you.
People use this Ernest Hemingway quote all the time when they're discussing this argument. How did you go bankrupt? Well, slowly at first, and then all of a sudden.
The dude nailed it. Ernest Hemingway nailed it.
Yeah, I'm saying this. It doesn't. Your current linear extrapolation of square kilometers that Russia takes per day is a terrible way to think about the risk.
Is it?
That Russia.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Look at HTS. Look at HTS in Syria. Halat Tikaka El Sham. I don't know what HTS stands for. Something El Sham.
I think you made that up, but yeah.
Pretty close. Something El Sham. But HTS was around in various forms, in the early 2000s. I think they were affiliated with Al Qaeda and ISIS, and then in 2016 or 2017, they officially became HTS, like a little offshoot of whatever, fundamentalists. They didn't do anything. They stayed around, west of Aleppo for 2017 till 2024.
They hung out, stayed in the game, stayed alive.
They didn't do anything. So if you're in 2024, if you said, let's extrapolate HTS and how long it's going to take HTS to take over the government of Syria. At the current rate, it's going to be 118 yeyears. And then that's December 2024. And you wake up the next day and they have the entire country.
I don't think I like your attitude.
What I'm saying is this argument downplays the Russian military risk to Ukraine. I hate it.
From what? From motorcycles? From motorcycles?
Yes. Yeah.
From Mad Max? From a Mad Max rerun of shit-ladas welded together with a fucking skateboard on the back? Like maybe there is some truth to the 118
There's a lot
years.
of contradictions. Every day is another contradiction.
That's true. That's true.
Self-propelled artillery is worthless in Ukraine. Oh, the next day, self-propelled artillery is the only thing that can survive in Ukraine.
I think we've agreed since day one.
Yeah, I'm saying, come on. There's contradictions everywhere. So I have to say, hats off to J.P. Morgan Chase for writing a very clear, precise, short read
that
brings up the arguments
that a senior in college could have written for their mid-semester report.
Dude, it's fine. I'm putting all this stuff in the show notes. You want to go read it? If you want to get the issues, I think this is a short read. It'll take you like 6 minutes, maybe. Just came out this month. You got to give them credit for. I love the fact that they actually predict what's going to happen, when they think it's going to happen, and what are the impacts. They're completely wrong.
Right. But that's hard to do because you're giving guys like me a target on the wall to shoot at now. Well, I don't agree with that. Well, that don't make sense. Do you think about that? It's easy to sharpshoot this stuff. Their stuff was clear. It was meant to be digested easily. There's a lot of graphics. It's worth reading. It's only 7 pages.
I hope it's a good report. It'll be in the show notes. Not a good report. Sorry, let me be clear. Not a good report.
It's superficial.
What they say, but it's a good way to organize the issue.
Organize the thoughts and the issues.
The thoughts and the issue.
Okay, dude. Hey, you got to scroll down to the page on NATO defense spending. You got to. Come on.
I don't even want to talk about it. I'm done with this.
The viewers
can read it.
NATO defense spending, dude. Come on. That's been a political football since day one. I'm going to address it, bro. You're not going to shut me down because it's inconvenient to you, sir. Sir.
Okay. Hold on.
Come on. So GDP.
I'm going to go back to it, and then I'm going to scroll down. Okay.
That's useful.
Okay. Let's go down to European defense spending, which is the second half of the report. Future of Europe. Bam,
right there.
Good chart.
So the gold, the light color, the gold on the left is where European countries had spent as of 2021. The dark blue, which is generally on the right, you would want it to be a right, meaning that it had moved forward, is what is European defense spending in 2024 by each country. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can see there has been overall a significant movement to more spending over 3 years.
Italy has spent less.
They went backwards.
Since we're very popular in Italy, I don't want to say anything bad about the Italians.
I will.
They've gone backwards.
They went backwards.
Spending.
You will notice, well, also so did Croatia. You will notice the further west you get geographically, the less improvement there is in funding. Spain, Slovenia looks like they spent like an extra $10. Belgium went forward a little bit. Canada, oh God bless, Canada spent $100 more. Italy went backwards. Portugal went forward like $1.
Barely.
So like the further you're removed from this, the less interested you're spending in this. You don't feel the threat. I find that interesting. It's just a measure the distance from the front line. Oh, I don't care that much. Okay.
As a percentage of GDP, the countries that have increased their spending from 2021 to 2024, it looks like Poland has increased the most.
Over 4%.
Well, to 4%.
They're the top one.
They increased 1.5%, roughly.
Right, but they're over 4% of GDP now.
Right.
Look how the U.S. went backwards in percentage of GDP.
That's interesting because next year,
But
if
we
they
want
did
to run our mouths
2025,
about how much they need to spend.
Yeah, but if they do next year, or
Greece went backwards
2026,
too.
we'll be going ahead.
Greece went backwards considerably.
Greece did go backwards, but it looks like Poland increased the most, and then Estonia,
Latvia,
Lithuania, the Baltics,
and then
Finland, Denmark, everybody, and Macedonia. Oh, there's one. Macedonia coming in, probably internal strife issues.
North Macedonia, man, these guys are ballers, dude.
Yeah. Anyway, what's your conclusion there? You wanted to address.
You look at
spending.
1, 2,
who's above
3, 4,
2%?
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 are at 2% or more. Right?
There you go.
That was the beef.
There you go.
That the Trump administration had for so long. But
and we're done. But he moved the goalpost. He moved the goalpost.
Exactly. Because that was his
3.5%.
For years. That needs to be 2% or more. And I got it. And I agree with him. Pull your fair share. But you still have countries not pulling their fair share. Spain, Luxembourg. Although I got to admit, Luxembourg went from like 0.4% to like 1.3%. Like, here's a cookie.
But it was probably $800 billion.
Belgium.
Their GDP. So
Canada moved barely. Yeah, there's still like some laggards.
So the only countries that are not at 2% now. Well, this is 2024. So this might not be incorrect. But this the data we have, the latest data we have. It looks like it's Croatia. No, Croatia made it. It looks like it's Portugal, Italy, Canada, Belgium, Luxembourg, Slovenia, and Spain are not pulling their weight under.
No, they're not.
That's not bad. They're insignificant countries. Think about it, except for maybe Italy and Canada.
I mean, they got great food.
Spending wise. I mean, spending wise.
Oh, my
I
bad.
don't mean countries.
Oh, my bad.
Italy, Canada. Okay. There you go.
These guys aren't pulling their weight. Whenever they talk about whatever, they're just talking about. They're not chipping in. They should increase to 2%. And the whole increase should go directly to Ukraine. I would agree. Like again, Luxembourg. What are you going to do? Your increase should be sending munitions to Ukraine. You defeat Russia in the field.
This is a form of Luxembourgian soft power.
Do they have any? Same with Belgium. Belgium.
What do you think?
Do your 2%.
What do you think what's the intelligence apparatus of Luxembourg? What do you think the intelligence community in Luxembourg? I bet you they are the shadow world government.
Maybe. You mean BlackRock?
Yeah, maybe BlackRock.
They've got a partnership with BlackRock runs their country. Yeah, maybe. Offshore. Who knows?
Can we end this episode on a video? We have lots to choose from.
We can.
How about Russians? And fair warning. Now that we're in video format for the Flash Traffic podcast, we have to caveat our videos.
It is a compelling format now.
Yeah, because before we could just talk about Russians getting blown up, but now we have to say trigger alert, whatever alert, someone's going to die in the next video. Okay, let me stop sharing this and let me share a video. How about the Russians getting beat up by their own guys?
Oh, the corporal punishment. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, here we go. Here's some Russians that didn't want to go die on the front lines in the meat wave. So you can see for yourself, they taped them, and this might have sound.
Might there be a video?
There we go.
Is there a video?
I thought it was. Sorry, new to the video format. New to the video format. There we go.
Bam.
Oh, there we go. And
What is that, like a plant pot or something on that dude's head? What the hell is that? It's a bucket?
I think it's a bucket, like a metal bucket.
It's a bucket. Okay, gotcha.
Okay, here we go.
It's a dunce cap.
Блять, отказнички ебаные со 132-й. Воины нахуй.
Damn, they just busted that dude in the head.
Бывает. Палку, сука, сломать. Ой, блядь, головушку разбили. Больно тебе, сука.
So they're taped to a tree with duct tape, and their commanding officer is cursing at them, blat suka, and kicking them in the face. And yeah, okay.
Can you do that in the U.S. military?
Yeah. What military were you in? They didn't tie you to a tree and beat your face?
Well, they did
when you were in the military.
In SEER school they did, but that was for training. So these guys are, contract soldiers who got paid what, 25, 30K to do this.
$2,500. $2,500 a month.
That's it. Oh, okay. They show up.
They probably got a bonus. They got a 30K bonus.
They show up. They see things are for reals. There's an FPV drone literally with their name written on it, and their life expectancy is sadly shortened than what they thought it might be. And they're like, "Yeah, I'm not going."
They show up to the Storm Battalion, right? And the company, Alpha Company, goes out the day before. He's in Bravo Company, and Alpha Company does not return because they're all dead. And so he doesn't want to go out, let's say. And so to make an example of him,
well, that's not going to work.
Later in the video, they do some other disgusting bad things to that guy.
Oftentimes, they put these guys in pits. That's a Roman punishment. You dig a pit. Yeah. You put him in a pit.
No food, no water.
Yeah, you put like a grate over the top. Hey, just sit in a hole, dude. It's hot out, good for you. It's cold out, good for you.
Yeah.
Just sit there and shit and piss on yourself and think about your inability to follow orders, which is killing yourself.
Yeah, the video that came out last week or the week before, they were in a pit. Apparently the story was there were 3 guys in the pit. One guy can come out of the pit if the other 2 are dead. That was the
you could probably do a
man
movie
enter,
on
one
that.
man leave.
Right, yeah, right.
Tina
There's a
Turner,
movie in there somewhere.
Tina Turner movie.
So Russians believe in corporal punishment. If you don't do and I had I just do a small story. There's a guy I knew, 10th group guy, who I never worked with the Russians. Worked with the Russians in the Balkans on a peacekeeping mission, and he said that I don't know, like the platoon leader or whatever kicked the shit out of one of his guys. I mean, beat the shit out of him because the guy was drunk, and not that being drunk in the Russian army is unusual, but like physically would beat the shit out of his soldiers if there was something they did wrong or crossed a line. It's probably had to be a pretty big line to cross if you're in a Russian military. Like basically everything you do is screwed up. But that's how they treat their guys. Physically,
that's the way they do it.
Physical punishment.
Yeah. That interview a couple weeks ago with Sean Pinner.
Yeah.
He said that when he came into the Ukrainian army, before the full-scale invasion, 2018-ish, I think. He said that all the NCOs were picked based on how big they were, so they could beat people's asses.
So they could throw you a beat down.
That was the only criterion, was how big are you? How much can you beat people's asses? You're the NCO. You are the platoon sergeant.
That probably works in the Russian military. I understand it has nothing to do with competence or knowledge or professionalism. And by the way, once you get into combat, no one's tougher than a bullet.
That's right. Can't outrun it. Can't beat a bullet's ass.
Hey, I liked that JP Morgan article. I liked it.
There were some things to like.
I liked it.
Even though it was wrong, I love the format. I love how they put that shit together.
Formatting was superior. They made
it was very
digestible.
Clear.
Right.
If I was a real estate investor that somehow made it to the presidency, this would be an intelligence article that I could read at my literary level, and also probably would read. Like if I needed to know what's going on, I would read something like that. If I was a real estate investor that somehow found himself in the presidency.
Yeah,
again.
These guys bumper sticker this. They just give you wave top, couple numbers, couple graphs for you to digest.
Anyways, let's not go backwards. Let's wrap it up.
Let's move forward.
We will leave this on Russians getting beat up by other Russians, which I think is a happy note.
For not committing suicide.
It's a happy way to end the podcast. We have one announcement. This Friday, so in 2 days from now, we will have a special guest, a friend of the podcast, Dr. Jahara Frankie Matisek, should be joining us for War Weave Friday. So that'll be fun. That'd be great.
That's a no-miss event. Yeah, if you put off whatever you're doing, carve this space out. You need to.
The next episode, unless he hurts himself playing pickleball, he should be here. If you like the Flash Traffic podcast, and if you've listened this long, I'm going to assume that for whatever reason, you enjoy listening to this, even if it's just to make fun of us. Please forward the URL to the podcast or the episodes to someone you think might listen and subscribe.
Your parents.
If you're listening to this,
your grandkids.
If you're listening to this on a bootleg copy of a CD that your friend gave you, go to the actual website.
Is that illegal?
And follow.
Maybe that's why we're not making any money. That's probably why I didn't get a good enough contract from you, like that one listener observed.
Look, it's all supply and demand.
Ain't a whole lot of demand. A lot of supply, not a lot of demand.
Supply, demand, 3 times a week. Supply, demand, still
not so
working
much.
On it. Okay, good chat.
All right, see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Flash Traffic Podcast.